Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the final session of today's instalment of Interact Virtual Festival. This talk is from Sandra Gonzalez for our second appearance at Interact this week after our panel on diversity and inclusion in design on Monday. Sandra is Product Design Director at Not on the High Street and founder of UX for Change, a global organisation that for the last 5 years has connected non-profit organisations with the UX community. Her previous design work spans from heavily trafficked e-commerce platforms to technology for aiding refugees, and she's done that with organisations such as Microsoft, Just Eat, TalkTalk, and EmpowerHack. In this session, called Design Gets a Seat at the Table, Now What?, Sandra will discuss how design leaders can make the most of having a seat at the C-suite table. Please join in the discussion and ask any questions using the Q&A or the chat box, and I'll try and ask Sandra as many as I can at the end. And please do say hello to each other in the chat too. So yeah, without further ado, I'll hand over to Sandra to kick things off.
Thank you, Henry. Hello everyone, welcome to my Interact 2020 talk. Design gets a seat at the table, now what? Just as I got introduced, I have to do this, take it a little farther. So yeah, this picture actually was taken 4 years ago. And the reason I wanted to share this picture with you is because that picture captures a very important moment in my life. The day I was promoted to head of UX and design at Just Eat. And that was my first corporate leadership position. And I say corporate because before that, I launched my design leadership career by founding UX for Change, which mission is to enable positive change in the world by connecting the nonprofit sector with the UX community while championing digital design excellence. So in other words, my path to design leadership has been dual track, first as a founder of what now is a global UX organization with chapters in London, New York, and Sydney, and second as a product design leader in the London tech scene. So far, I had 4 design leadership positions, and these talks share some of the things that I have learned during my journey as a design leader during my time in those 4 companies, as well as working with dozens of charities through UX for Change. All right. Now, one really quick thing that I want you to remember is when I say design, I mean mostly product design. So you'll see the word being used interchangeably. Okay, so oops, I went too far. I decided to put this talk together after reading an article in Fast Company, which resonated deeply with me. This article was written after a massive new study led by McKinsey, where they concluded that just about nobody knows what a chief design officer is actually supposed to do. McKinsey interviewed 200 senior design leaders and 100 top executives and realized and analyzed the answers of more than 1,700 respondents to the McKinsey Design Index survey tool. They found out that many CEOs they interview are still using the 1980s definition of color, material, and finish to describe what a design leader would do. Benedict Shepard, the partner at McKinsey, who co-authored the study, said, yeah, people are put into these positions, but they don't necessarily are put into a successful role. So today, I'm going to talk to you about exactly that. Now that a seat at the table has been reserved for us designers, how can we land the right role and set ourselves up for success in such a role? But first of all, let's get an important question out of the way. Some of you may wonder, but if design leadership is so misunderstood, why are we getting a seat at the table? Well, I'm glad you asked. The answer is simple, because good design means good business. In a different study, after analyzing 2 million pieces of financial data and 100,000 design actions for 300 public companies over a 5-year period, McKinsey found that those with the strongest commitment to design had a 32% more revenue and 56% more total return to shareholders. Another study from 2015 called the DMI Design Value Index showed that over the last 10 years, design-led companies have maintained significant stock market advantage, outperforming the S&P by an extraordinary 211%. By the way, the S&P is like the FTSE 100 here in UK. Think of it as the United States FTSE 500. In other words, it is now widely recognized in the industry that design leadership can significantly contribute to the bottom line. However, recognizing this fairly new finding doesn't immediately translate to knowing how to unlock the superpower that product design can bring to a company. If you walk away with one learning from this talk, I hope is the following. It is up to us, future and current design leaders, to help organizations understand how to unlock the superpower of design and what it can bring to a company. I'm warning you, I'll be saying this over and over again to drive the message home. Just like attending a fancy ball for the first time, many design leaders are about to be invited to join this extravagant party where a seat at the C-suite table is waiting for them. This talk focuses on the things you should consider when you are invited to the party and how to make the best out of the invitation. But first, let's take a look at the seating plan. Anyone that joins a fancy ball would be curious to find out the seating arrangements, wouldn't you? It goes without saying that the CEO will be at the table, followed by the Chief Marketing Officer. This is a very important person, which I highly recommend you get close to, as they would likely have design capabilities. You may also find an operations person. This person may have customer service team under their organization, a key team for any design leader that's looking after the end-to-end customer experience. You will of course have a CFO who will be trying to figure out how to capitalize from anything that your team does. And now the next person is super important to you. And that is the person that leads the technical and product capabilities of the company. Sometimes it's two people. Sorry, I went too far. There we go. Sometimes it's two people. Sometimes it's the same person. So chances are that the design leader will be reporting to this person. All right, so now we have a design leader at the table, but it's important to identify that you are actually in the right table. So the title could be anything, right? It could have the Chief Design Officer, it could be a VP of Product, Product Design Director, Head of UX. Regardless of what the title is, the most important indicator is what type of meetings are you actually getting involved in or being invited in a recurrent basis, okay? So, for example, if these meetings are talking about strategy and the company financial performance, like a trading meeting, you gotta sit at the table. You're definitely sitting at the table. It's worth mentioning, however, that if this leader is invited to an ad hoc basis to these meetings, for example, to show the final visual of the new redesign, chances are that you are not sitting at the table, but remember, it is up to you to influence that. So as I said, we need to always be ready to identify if we are or not sitting at the table. And this is a good way to think about it. All right, here we go. So before we get excited about what is happening at the table, let's talk about the invitation. Remember, we're being invited to this exciting ball because the industry now recognizes that good product design is good business. So let's take a look at the invitation. I did a bit of research on all open leadership roles I can find from a wide range of companies across UK and US, from non-startups to established corporations, with the purpose of doing a quick analysis on what words were used when inviting design leaders to join their companies. The reason I chose these companies is because they, at least from the outside, seem to understand how good product design is good business. Next, you're going to see a word cloud made up of all the job descriptions from these 15 renowned companies. All right, are you ready to see the word cloud? I'm gonna give you a moment to process the word cloud. Did anything call your attention? Any surprises? Any obvious words? Well, keep these words in mind as I'm about to show you 3 different types of invitations. I have recognized these type of invitations after having looked for a design leadership position in the last 4 years. All right, now it's important to recognize what type of invitation you're getting. I have classified the invitations in 3 different categories. First, the unicorn invitation. You will be given a fancy title such as VP of Design or even the Chief Design Officer title. However, once you dig a bit deeper into the job description, you find out that this role is the only design role in the organization. This happens a lot in startups. So you will be 100% hands-on. You'll be designing their end-to-end experience for all their 3 platforms with enough time to spare to be influential in the international arena. And you're also responsible to have a strong presence in all design conferences, because after all, this startup is going to be the next Airbnb. So you better get recognition early on. This organization might have many previous designers that didn't last more than a few months. And when you ask different people about why designers don't last, you get an inconsistent answer. Now, there's no plan to have proper UX research function, because after all, who needs it when you have a coffee shop downstairs? All you have to do is show some designs in exchange for free coffee, right? Needless to say, be very careful with this setup. Remember, what is the best indicator that you're actually sitting at the table? You're invited to ongoing meetings that have to do with strategy and company financial performance. Does this role sound like you'll have time for that? All right, let's move to the next type of invitation, the pioneer invitation. One very telling indicator around this invitation is that something has changed at C-suite level. The organization may have had a shakeup where new people have joined the C-suite, and part of their new internal strategy is to bring a design leader. Otherwise, you should ask yourself, why suddenly the design discipline is being invited to the table? This is something you should find out during the interview process and make sure you are convinced with the answer, as it may help you understand if you're coming as a pioneer or as a unicorn. This invitation has a top-down approach. First, the company will establish the design leader, and then it is up to the person to build the team that will deliver business value through design. During the interview process, you need to make things super clear. Set up the expectation that at the beginning, your time will be mostly spent focused on building the team, getting to understand the company's business model, the value proposition, working side by side with product and technology counterparts to create business strategies. Also make it crystal clear that design outcomes will only be available once the team has been hired and had gone through all the usual stages of forming or establishing a team, which is forming, storming, and norming stages. You will be then working side by side with the team to turn it into a high-performing team. Again, if this makes the interviewees feel uncomfortable, you might be interviewing for a unicorn job. So watch out. Lastly, the big shoe filler. This role is replacing another leader. By now, the design leadership role is well established. You will very likely inherit a team, which comes with its own challenges. And hopefully by now, the company has realized that innovation comes from understanding underserved user needs, which is something your team knows a great deal about if you have a proper UX research function set up. If you're not sure which of these 3 types of invitations you're receiving, I have put together these 4 key things to understand about design leadership role with a seat at the table. First of all, reporting lines. As I previously mentioned, chances are that this role is not within the C-suite per se, but it is important to understand how close it actually is. Funding. Understand what is the financial plan for the discipline, and by this I mean product design. Is it a one-off investment, a 1-year, 3-year plan? Is the company being funded by a design-focused investor? How is the company thinking about return of investment for this role and the team? Are you going to be given a pot of money and therefore you have your own profit and losses statement? Or do you have to create your very own business case to grow the team? The next one is growth. Very important to understand the company's growth plan and the role that design discipline plays in it. Also, understand how the company thinks about growing teams. Try to spot if your team may be under-resourced and therefore not able to bring the return on investment that the company is hoping for. Does the growth plan sound? All right, and lastly, a strategy. So, does the company think of product design as a strategic discipline? Is a strategy focused on optimization or innovation? Remember, it's up to design leaders to help organizations understand how to unlock the superpower of product design, making sure that the role is set up for success by asking the right questions is the first step that you will have to take as a design leader. And this should happen before you join the company. Right, so you have checked the invitation, you're happy to attend. What's next? Well, it's prep time. I highly recommend to following preparation when getting ready to start this new role, right? So first of all, go ahead and talk to others. Ask them questions about the organization, about the discipline of design, anything. Just figure it out what is happening internally. Oh, you have something very special that makes a big difference, and that's a fresh set of eyes. You're coming in with a completely new view of the world. So go ahead and study their competitors and use those fresh eyes to your advantage. And very importantly, figure out that thing that makes you unique. What unique perspective or skill you can actually bring into the business. So take the transition time as a moment of reflection. Make sure you reflect on things that worked in the past as a design leader, but most importantly, what has not worked. If you can't face yourself in the mirror and think about what learnings you want to take forward in this new role, well, you need to do some serious thinking. Also, take the opportunity to learn a new way to think about business strategy. In the wise words of Gerald Spool, UX strategy means business. Be curious and ready to learn new frameworks or approaches to product with the lens of product design. Learn about business strategy and also be as literate as you can be about business language. Be curious and believe me, it will pay off. Now, here's a picture of all the books I use to get ready for my current role. Oh, and by the way, if you want to strengthen your UX strategy skills, watch out, shameless plug coming in. I am the author of the only UX strategy course at Pluralsight, and it so happens to be free this week. So if you would like to learn more about resources and way of introducing UX strategy to your business, check it out. So just to recap, why is preparing your entrance to the organization so important? Because remember, it is up to design leaders to help organizations understand how to unlock the superpower of design. And making sure that you get ready for landing this role properly is important to your success. Don't forget, design leaders are new at sitting at the table. So do your research and make sure that you can bring impact from day one. Now that you are prepared to join the party, let's talk about how to make an entrance. So let's be honest, coming into a party with so many well-established leaders is not easy. You will be quickly judged and every single one of your moves will be watched. Let's think about it. It's hard to quickly bring impact when you might not even have a team. Make sure you're setting up the expectations. As I said, something that you should mention during your interview process, and just get creative around what you can do while you build your team. Use all that prep to your advantage. Now, I don't know if you read my LinkedIn announcement for this talk, but I did promise that the presentation will be a bit provocative. So here we go. Consider the following. You enter the party and find out that you have been misled during the interview process. Or in fact, you may have not asked the right questions or pay enough attention to the answers that didn't quite sit right with you. That's okay. This happens to anyone. It could happen to any of us. In fact, it happened to me. The key here is to identify the recipes for disaster as soon as possible. Within 2 weeks of joining the company, after about 8 to 10 conversations that leave you kind of like a bad taste in your mouth, you will know that the company may not be ready for a design leadership role. The concept of having a design leader in that organization may be undercooked, and that's okay. Well, actually, it's not okay. It sucks. You have made life-changing decisions, and here you are in a very tricky situation where you need to think fast what to do next. Now, the ingredients of this recipe for disaster are the following. You come in and there's no plan to hire a team. You're a unicorn. No clear established expectations as to how to get design to be a strategic discipline. No UX research, and visual design is considered UX or product design. Now, the steps to take, I already mentioned the two of them, the first two, but the third one is the one that is very, very tricky. You may have to go, okay? Abort the mission if necessary. In fact, when this happened to me, I recognized it within 2 weeks, and my resignation letter had a 32-page design strategy report tailored to this company, and I just attached it to my resignation letter. And that's how I made peace with the fact that I had been misled during the interview process, and also that I didn't ask enough of the right questions to understand that I was walking into a unicorn invitation. And once again, why being honest with yourself is so important? Because remember, it is up to design leaders to help organizations understand how to unlock the superpower of product design. And that also includes quitting on the organization. It's up to them to read the report I left them and analyze what may have gone wrong. So remember, as difficult as walking away is, you also don't want to be in a situation where you stay knowing that it will not be possible to bring the return of investment that the industry keeps expecting. All right, so let's hope that you decide to stay because everything is amazing, and you know that this extravagant party is the right fit for you. Now it's time to work the room. All right, so try to get to know as many people as possible. Here's a good way to drive the conversation. Listen to their story. Introduce yourself as a design leader. Ask them, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then go ahead and tell your own story, but tailor it. Think about what they have told you and how you can connect. Then go ahead and ask them what experience they had previously with a product design team. This is a gift because it's gonna give you a huge amount of information around how they think about design, what's the importance of design within their discipline, what things you may have to help them get over if they had a bad experience, what things they really like about your discipline if they had a really good experience. Now, go ahead and also share things relevant to their discipline. My favorite example is if you're talking to the CFO, talk about capitalization and how you know how to think about that return on investment. End the conversation with the question, what can I do for you? It's incredible the type of answers you will get. And lastly, ask, who else should I meet? And this is gonna give you an amazing idea of the network internally in the company. And very important, whatever you're about to do or say, keep it super, super nice, because at the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or what you did. They remember how you make them feel. And this is all about letting them know that you're here to be a helping hand. All right, I'm going to introduce you to one of the most eye-opener definitions of design maturity in an organization. I've taken this from a talk called Beyond the UX Tipping Point by Gerald Spool, and I highly, highly recommend that you get acquainted with this concept. All right, so sorry, I keep clicking extra. Just really quick, I'm pretty sure some of you have seen his talk. So different stages of maturity. It all starts with the dark ages, where there's pretty much no resources in design. Spot UX, occasionally UX projects with limited resources. Then you have UX teams that serves projects as a need basis. And then project teams get their very own UX resources. And finally, every project team member has fluent design skills. Okay? And the reason why this is important is because this maturity spectrum is going to heavily influence what you have to work on as a design leader. And I'll tell you why. Because organizations are made up of teams, and teams are made out of people. And out of those people, there's always going to be an influencer. And they're all going to have different behaviors at different design maturity stages. So as Gerald says, if you have a strong influencer who's basically in the dark ages and just says, look, I don't know what this design stuff is. Let's just keep moving and get stuff out. Well, that's a problem. That's going to hold the entire team back. And that's going to cause these folks who are at the front to say, well, they don't get it. How do we convince them? We've been playing this how do we convince them game for a really long time. But that's because we've been thinking about it wrong. Influencers are at the different stages, meaning that each team is actually held back because of the most immature influencer. So as Gerald says, it's not a matter of selling them on the idea. It's a matter of literacy and fluency and mastery. The issue here isn't that they need to be convinced. The issue is that they need to actually have the understanding of design. What we need to do is, through our work, to actually get them to level up. I love this because this ties the whole talk together, right? We started by saying that only 10% of CEOs understand what their chief design officers does. Going back to that stages of maturity and literacy, fluency, mastery. Now we know where the CEOs may be distributed. All right. So once again, this talk is absolutely key to understand how to be an effective design leader. I couldn't recommend it enough, so go check it out. Lastly, as Gerald say, if you want to understand what a UX leader does, that's it. They're leveling up everyone in the team. And when everyone in the team is leveled up, that team produces better work. And when more teams produce better work, we get better outcomes. And as I've been highlighting with this slide, with better design outcomes, we're in a position to unlock the superpower of product design. Nice. So after work in the room, you're ready to sit down and enjoy your meal. Let's bring back the seating plan. By now, you should have had very good chats with most of your peers and had the opportunity to understand what they are interested in and their very own design maturity. Ideally, you're already thinking about the plan to level them up. But how you're going to get them to understand design, right? Well, communication is key. You may be wondering, but what do I say? And if that's the question you have in your mind, you're missing a trick. The first question you should be asking yourself is, what language do I speak? And the answer to this is, you speak the language of business, which is money. In my previous experience, this is a good approach to speak that language. First, enter the organization and start figuring out where the cost savings can be, like design systems or trying to help the customer service team solve issues through the journeys. Then think about how you can bring the test and iterate lean startup approach into your design world. So it happens in prototypes because engineering time could be quite expensive. So how can we learn and hire the confidence of our products to build the right thing so we can develop with confidence? The other thing that is amazing is to keep our customers happy, right? So quickly try to reduce friction and get rid of the pain points and bring delight and measure, because this is what's going to help you help the organization understand that return on investment in design. That's speaking the language of the table. And lastly, by the time you have built all of these case studies, you will be in a really good place to start talking big business strategy with your research team having been established and hopefully providing innovative solutions to all the things you learn. All right, so I know I've shown these slides 6 times, and the reason why I have done this is because I want to bring the latest point home. Do whatever you have to do while speaking the language of business, as you see in this slide, to help the organization understand how to unlock the superpower of product design. Even if it takes breaking presentation conventions, like showing the same slide over and over again. Nice. We're gonna go into our last section. I hope you enjoy it. I keep doing the same thing, giving away the slide. All right, so just like any extravagant party, there will be dancing. Not the type of dancing you do when you have a good time with your pals and gals in the pub. You are going to get ready to tango. So let me start by saying that entering a design leadership role could feel like being blind and doing the tango with a stranger. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, called Scent of a Woman. In this scene, Al Pacino, a blind war veteran that's struggling with life, went on a weekend trip to New York City to feel alive. One of the things he decided to do is to ask these gorgeous women to dance tango with him. Let's think for a moment what it may take for someone to do something so brave. I decided to call it 6 personal qualities to dance tango with a stranger. According to Jeffrey Pfeiffer, professor of organizational behavior and Stanford Graduate School of Business, There are fundamental dimensions that distinguish people who rise to the greatest heights and accomplish amazing things. These dimensions are will, the drive to take on big challenges, and skill, the capabilities required to turn ambition into accomplishment. The three personal qualities embodied in will are as follows: ambition, energy, and focus. Let's think about this for a moment. In order for Al Pacino's character to get to that moment of asking her to dance, he first needs the ambition to do it, something that took the person who was guiding him around the city by surprise, then the energy to go after his ambition, and the focus to get it right. After he asked her to dance, he asked his guide to give him coordinates to the dance floor in order to understand the layout of the room. Then he was able to lead the tango as if he's danced in that dance floor for many, many years. This definitely requires some serious focus. The three skills used in the situation are self-knowledge, confidence, and empathy with others. I think the first two are obvious. So I'm going to focus on empathy with others. Just to go back to the scene in the movie, the woman was at the table by herself. She was waiting for her partner who was late. Al Pacino asked her if she liked tango. She said that she did and that she wanted to learn how to dance, but had never been able to. He didn't then offer her to teach her. I'm offering you my service, free of charge. She responded by saying that she was a little afraid. He said, afraid of what? And she said, afraid of making a mistake. And that's when the really, really famous quote from this movie came about. No mistakes in the tango, darling. Not like life. It's simple. That's what makes tango so great. If you make a mistake, get all tangled up, just tango on. Wow. What an amazing way to empathize in this situation, helping her feel at ease and reassuring her that in tango, there's no mistakes. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to add one skill to my 6 personal qualities to dance tango with a complete stranger list. So for that, I'm gonna get rid of the title because now I have 7. And I'm going to add the 7th skill, which is called capacity to tolerate conflict. Now that I have added this skill to the list, you're actually looking at the 7 important personality qualities to build power. You might ask yourself, wait a minute, one moment she's talking about dancing tango, the next she's talking about building power. What's going on? Well, I have some news for you. Power is part of leadership and is necessary to get things done. Going back to the McKinsey study, they said, with no clear way to link design to business health, senior leaders are often reluctant to divert scarce resources to design functions. That's problematic because many of the key drivers of the strong and consistent design environment identified in the research call for company-level decisions and investment. While many designers are acutely aware of some of the top needs to get that done, this typically can be tackled by designers alone and often take years of leadership commitment to be established. And how do you get company-level decision and investment for the design discipline? By using your tango skills of building power and influence with the senior leaders of your company. So one more time, this is how you unlock the superpower of product design. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Any questions?
Cool, thanks so much, Sandra. There's so much there for any design leader or aspiring design leader. That's, yeah, it's so super interesting. I think we've got a few questions.
Yeah.
We have one from Simon here. Simon's asking, would a product designer leader role cover both product design and service design?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Right. Would a product design leader role cover both product design and service design?
Okay, I hear it now. Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, it all depends on the company and how they think about it and how big it is and what type of service they're providing. If it's a huge part of their blueprint, it may make sense to have it as a separate role, right? Eventually, it's all going to come back to how much you want to improve something or innovate on something. So I would say it's hard to say. I mean, as design leaders and as designers in general, we are jack of so many trades, right? So I would say just having that service design knowledge is very important to maybe make a strong case in the future to say, look, I've been doing this part for a while, but the company would really benefit to have a dedicated leader for this section of design, which is service design. So I would say it depends on the company, but it's good to be able to lead just to set it up for the future.
Awesome, thanks so much. I mean, in a company where there is no kind of design seat in the boardroom, kind of going back a step kind of further back from your talk, how would you go about kind of getting that seat in the first place?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It depends. It depends. There's what I call windows of opportunity. There's moments in time where it just makes so much sense. So my experience in Just Eat was that they were about to do a redesign and they had no plan to what that meant for the product. And I work relentlessly trying to make a case for it's a good time to bring leadership. You're about to redesign the product. It needs to be thought out beyond that just launch of the redesign. So sometimes it's up to the individual to do a lot of convincing and a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of times, as I said, comes from the C-suite. And it's an interesting one because I've seen it a lot. They either take a course or go to a conference or hear something and they're like, oh, I need one of them. And as I said, just recognizing that they need a design leader doesn't mean that everything is all nice and shiny and set up for you. So it kind of depends. One of the examples and the ways I heard from other leaders that works really well is to start with a small project, but be very conscious that you are actually strategically starting with that project to turn it into a case study. And when you do that, the way you think about tracking success and the way you think about measuring is very different, right? Because you know it's the right thing to do and you're like, yeah, it's gonna work. But when you're trying to turn it into a case study, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, how do I position this? So then you go ahead and you do the right tracking and all of that, and then you can turn it into a case study. So yeah, it's just being very brave, I would say, realizing those windows of opportunity, having lots of allies in the company, and also understanding other people's stories. So learn how other people were able to crack into that world, like I just shared when it came to my first role.
Awesome, thank you so much. And we have finally we just have a couple of requests from Colin, who is asking if you could share the key things to investigate slide. Is that super useful? And also the link to the McKinsey report that you showed on 7 slides, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. We can send that around. You can just almost say, McKinsey Design Index on Google and find it, but I'm happy to share around. Contact me in LinkedIn if you want. I'll send all the resources, or Nomensa can be helping with that as well. It's a really good report. I highly recommend it. And also the UK Design Council 2 years ago created this amazing report as well about the importance of bringing design leadership. farther up into the chain. So I'm happy to share a lot of those resources. They're there. I just happen to know where they are. So yeah.
Awesome, brilliant. No, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we got lots of people in the chat saying thank you, great talk. I think if no one else has any more questions, then we can wrap up. We thank you very much, Sandra. That was amazing for your second appearance at Interact this week.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
We have one more day, 3 more sessions tomorrow that you can still sign up for. Check out our Eventbrite on our Twitter for links to sign up. We'd love to see you there for the final day. Cool.
Cheers,
Thank you very much, Sandra.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.